Welcome to Office Hours. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Like I said before, new day, new time. Hopefully, this works well for some people that maybe couldn't make it before. If you have questions, if you want to go ahead and start getting those either into the chat, or if you want to raise your hand, I can bring you up on the stage to voice your question to us. So feel free to get that going while we make a few quick announcements. The biggest announcement we have, I think, is in case you missed it, EdgeDB 5.0 is going to be launching on April 19th. That's Friday. Let's see, it's 2 Fridays from tomorrow. So look forward to that. You'll get to start messing around with branches and some new auth providers. Maybe Scott, you can share a little bit about those if you don't mind. But actually, you can already start messing with all those things through the beta if you want to try that out, and you can see how to install that in the changelog. What are those new providers, Scott?
Yeah, so Auth got 2 new OAuth providers, Slack and Discord. They're thematically related, if you can tell. And then also 2 new passwordless providers, both WebAuthn, so passkeys or YubiKeys or whatever your platform supports, and magic links, so email a unique sign-in link that expires. So we're pretty excited about the passwordless thing because that's a real nice, easy on-ramp to getting quickly to have auth in your app in a way that's super secure. You're not storing passwords.
Nice. Yeah, looking forward to both of those, and it seems like a lot of users are too. If the activity in the new auth channel on Discord is any indication, so if you are using EdgeDB Auth and you haven't seen that channel, head over there and check it out. Scott's doing great work in there, helping people get up and going with EdgeDB Auth. And then
I'm also actively looking for feedback for people who are either testing out auth or using it actively or are interested in it, but it's missing some features that you need. I'd love to just get some general feedback, thoughts, questions. We're kind of now that 5.0 is launched, we're kind of in early planning stages for what I'm going to be focusing on for 6.0. So now it's a great time to give me your feedback, thoughts, that sort of thing.
Awesome. Yeah. So voice that feedback as well in the auth channel here. And I think maybe Alexandra has an announcement or two for us before we kick off.
Yes, I do have an announcement. So the announcement is that we're going to have a hackathon after we launch EdgeDB 5. So a few details, like the hackathon will probably be like the development days. It will take 2 weeks approximately. We'll have 3 categories. The first one will be like the best like overall app. We'll have 3 prizes there. We'll have a separate special category for the funniest app. And then we'll also have some prizes for people who are like significantly helpful on Discord. So, if you help others, if you share knowledge about HDB, there are also prizes up for grabs. You can participate solo or you can gather a team. And the requirements in terms of like the tech stack is like obviously that you use HDB. And the other thing is that it's an application deployed on Vercel. So there will be more details coming up soon. This is all we can share for now, but stay tuned. We'll announce everything shortly.
Awesome. That sounds great. Lots of different ways you can participate in that. So look for the additional details coming soon. And I guess now we can kick off. If anyone has questions, feel free to raise your hand or go ahead and post those in the chat. I'm curious if any of you have gotten to play with branches in the beta and how you're finding that. So also, as you're thinking about questions, if you have any feedback on that, I would like to hear it. We would all like to hear it, I'm sure. Yep, Quinn. Quinn is giving us branch muscles in the chat there. Quinn's been one of the driving forces to help us roll out branches in the CLI. Branches, what is branches? Is the first question from Fox Pro. Good one. That's a great question. Yes, Nikita, you can come up. Let me just address the most general question first, and then we'll bring you on. Branches allow you to create it. So this is the feature that used to be databases. It's kind of the same, but also kind of not. It's just more of a semantic change. But what this would allow you to do is you can do development on your schema in a separate branch of your database that will not affect your main branch, so that if you need to roll back, you can always just switch back to your main branch, and then you can do whatever schema changes, experimentation. It doesn't have to be schema either. You can use it for data stuff, however you want to use those, but it's an isolated almost database. Yeah, it's a cool feature. All right, let's bring...
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Hello, welcome.
Yes, thank you.
Sure.
All right, so quick thing about branches is that I wonder, so I'm sharing my screen, I hope?
Yes.
Yes. So basically one thing that I'm trying to set up is basically every PR, I want to essentially provision, so like actually in EdgeDB Cloud, I have two databases. One is like production database and one is my staging database. And one thing I'm thinking of using branches for is every PR, I want to essentially have like a database provisioned for that PR with EdgeDB. And I was thinking of using branches for that. I'm kind of wondering how that's going to work. Like, what kind of code do I need to write so that I open like essentially a PR, and then whatever changes are in default.esdl in that branch are going to be deployed in a branch. And then I suppose I will, is it possible to point my API to the EdgeDB instance of a branch, or that's not what branches are for? Yeah. So basically, I don't want to provision like many databases. Like I don't want to have, it just doesn't make sense to have 20 databases for each PR. That doesn't make sense. But will branches solve the issue of having a PR per branch?
Yes.
And,
Take that one, Devin.
Oh no, go for it, Scott.
Yeah. So James is actually actively working on an integration with Vercel to do exactly this, where similar to their PR review apps, we would provision a new database for each branch basically that you have on GitHub, and then keep it up to date as you're pushing commits to that branch, and then clean it up once that branch is merged. So that's definitely a use case that we want to support. Now, the actual mechanism of doing that is going to be unique. The Vercel integration will kind of bring with it some GitHub Actions integration. So that should hopefully be possible in the future.
And for people who are not using Vercel like me, who are just using straight Cloudflare, I would have to write my own code for it, or?
That's right. Yeah. You basically have to do the plumbing of detecting that this is a new branch and that you don't have a database or don't have a branch already in your database, and then create a new one, and then detect that when new commits come in, to check for migrations and migrate it, and then when the branch gets deleted, go and delete
Because right
the
now,
branch.
I'm keeping things quite simple. So I actually have just one
Hmm.
staging. So like if I refresh this page, it shows that I have like this branch deployed. And what I do like in
Mm.
my in here is that I have like a script called web deploy dev, which basically
Hmm.
like if I run it, it essentially it does like one thing that is kind of semi interesting is that my build script is this export void cf like basically this it takes in like I create a deploy details file in the branch and that deploy so if I do here yeah there like basically in here I create the a file deploy details where I basically pass the branch from which I deployed from which I actually like like pushed the commit and then this is what shows up here and then if I click on
Hmm.
this it goes to the PR and so like I basically have
Nice.
one staging and that's working like really good so far for me but yeah, like branches sounds cool. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is that like, I don't know, I mentioned it in general in Discord. So like I've watched a couple of talks about like event-driven architectures, and one thing I kind of want to get your thoughts on is that I created essentially an object called events in my database, and right now, it takes in just a JSON of a mutation. So all mutations that I do will essentially create an event that says the mutation that I did and the arguments of the mutation. So in my mind, in theory, I can potentially reverse all mutations done to my HDB because well, I have this. Yeah, like I know in which order the mutations happened. And I'm kind of curious, first of all, like I guess like this JSON seems like not good, maybe. Like how would you go about this, or like do you have any experience with this kind of setup, or yeah, or
Definitely.
this is like enough for to just get like something started. Like I'm just like I just because this is very trivial to for me, like it's just like with HDB.js, it's just like one line to essentially append to an events. So it's not really hard for me to, yeah, like on my side.
Yeah.
But I'm just wondering if like
Um,
JSON is okay.
yeah, you can make it a little bit more structured than JSON and still have the payload be, um, you know, easy to change and easy to mutate without having a bunch of different types. Um, I would personally go with like you could subtype event with um, some actual structure that you know about in your application to help with migrations. Because one thing that JSON is hard with is if you change something, then you have to figure out how your new code will be able to read old events. And like you kind of have to write like a lens almost for those, be able to read old events and new events. Like if you append a new property, like now it has to have a default. And um, like managing versioning for events is actually its own kind of big ball of wax. And I think you can lean on EdgeDB here a little bit because you can actually migrate and then you can make those decisions at migration time of like what defaults are and kind of keeps your code a little bit cleaner. I would personally lean towards that. I don't actually, I also have an affinity for this design pattern, but I've never done it in any job that I've ever had. Everyone's always been like, oh, event sourcing is it's too much of a hassle. Um, but I like that design and
Yeah, because I talked with a few people and they said like if you want to start with event like this kind of stuff, just start tracking mutations, and then
yeah, mhm,
that's like the first entry you would yeah, and
yeah,
that's how I kind of want to start because basically a lot of the code base that I have for like Learn Anything, the project I'm working on, I'm kind of rewriting from
mhm.
scratch in some ways, just because like of the lessons I've learned, we
From what
have
you
like
learned, yeah.
yeah, we have like this new design that is coming, and yeah, basically it's quite nice. Like I would recommend if people have the capacity to drop their code and start from scratch, I recommend.
One other thing I wanted to mention with the branch thing that you were asking earlier is branches do have some overhead because each branch includes the standard library. I know that they're doing some work to try to slim that down a little bit, but you can't create an infinite number of branches because there's some static constant overhead for each branch, even if it doesn't include any data.
Yeah, I mean,
So-
I guess on my side, like if I ever go in that direction, I would probably like keep it to a limit, right? And then you would just drop out
yeah,
like stale branches. That's fine.
right, and clean up after yourself. Basically, do some
Yeah,
garbage collection.
yeah.
But that's something to note about cloud usage as well. That each branch is going to have some constant cost as far as like the storage that it takes, even if we don't charge per branch. And we're trying to make that more and more trivial, the amount of storage each branch takes. But
Mhm.
just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah, well, thank you. So I'm kind of excited about that. And you mentioned like April, right? Like that's the release date for that.
Mhm.
That means the release date for the cloud, right? For V5, I assume.
Yeah, I hope that we'll have 5.0 on cloud within a reasonable time period because want people on it as soon as possible.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Scott, I've got maybe...
Kevin, anything you wanted to add to either of those?
I don't want to add
those
anything,
things?
but I did have another, maybe another follow-up question that you might be enlightened on about the deploying branches. Do you happen to know if James's work on the Vercel integration, is that going to be open source? Is that something that a user could look at to help them adapt something similar to another target? I don't know the answer.
Yeah, I don't know the answer either, but I assume it either will be or we will push out pieces of it that you could reuse outside of Vercel. Like
Okay, as a guide or
some
something.
of the interactions are driven by GitHub. But yeah.
Okay, we'll check into that.
Okay.
All right. Are branches serializable somehow? Do they present in a dump? So a dump used to be of a database, and now a dump is of a branch, unless you dump all, in which case I think it's just the same thing now that it was before with databases. Is that your understanding, Scott?
Yeah, that's my understanding.
Okay.
Mostly branches are exactly the same as databases. They're like a superset of databases. We added some functionality to let you copy data and copy the schema between the databases and then rebase them and merge and that sort of thing. So.
Yeah. Branch can self-clean up.
At the moment, no. Branch doesn't know anything about when it would clean itself up, but I know we've talked about having some closer Git integration, which might help there.
Are passkeys planned for EdgeDB Auth? That's a yes, right?
Yes, that's a yes. So passkeys are a platform implementation of WebAuthn, and WebAuthn is in the new version of EdgeDB Auth that's shipping in 5.0. So if you're on a platform that has passkey support, Windows, Mac OS, Bitwarden, a few other, then you can use passkeys.
Nice. Exciting stuff.
Yep.
What is the general policy plan for making minor versions of EdgeDB available in the cloud? For example, the latest available version in the cloud right now is 4.5, even though 4.7 has been released. I know that right now the main focus is on the 5.0 release. Just curious mostly what to expect in the future. I'm not I don't know the answer to this. Do you have any insight on that, Scott? This
I
may
don't.
be...
This I would guess that this is an oversight.
yeah, this is something we can follow up on for you. In fact, I will make myself a note to do just that, and I will circle back around with you and try to get more information on that.
One other part of that question about passkeys was
Yeah.
infinite session
Infinite session JWTs.
tokens.
Yeah.
The time to live for the token is actually configurable. So I don't think we currently have a concept of infinity. You could do, a 99-year duration, and that would get you pretty close.
Any interesting stuff on your plate right now, Scott? Anything you're working on that's worth chatting about beyond what we've already mentioned in the 5.0 release?
Yeah, a lot of stuff for EdgeDB.js, which has been languishing a little bit, but been working a lot on type performance for the query builder.
Right.
That's one of my main focuses. Starting to think about designs for improving the ergonomics of EOP, which, if you're not an EdgeDB query builder user, is the function that you use to apply operators like equals or and that sort of thing. So those are two big non-auth related things that are on top of mind.
Nice. Okay, this is a question about the hackathon. Only new projects would be allowed, or can they submit one they're already working on for several months? Here's Alexandra.
Okay, so I can answer that one. Yeah, so we do have this requirement that it needs to be a new project. So that is for among all the new people who will start working on something during the hackathon.
Yeah. Yeah, we want to try to put everyone on a level playing field. So yes, it would be a project developed during the hackathon.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But let us know what you are working on so we can help you promote it, or we can get in touch and help.
Sure.
In any
Sure.
way.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'd love to know what you're working on. Share it in the showcase channel or privately via DM, however it makes sense for you. I'm very excited about Cloudflare Python workers. Going to try EdgeDB Python to see how it compares to EdgeDB.js. Cool. We've got some feature requests coming for you, Scott. So,
yeah, I'm glad we were talking about Cloudflare workers actually, because that's another thing that's kind of on my short list of things to address the EdgeDB.js. I think we're pretty close actually for most Edge runtimes to be able to run EdgeDB.js on them. But I think there's mostly just some testing that I need to do on the latest changes to support that.
Okay. So no real blockers at this point?
No real blockers,
Yeah.
that I'm aware of.
Cool.
We want to remove the need to use the node shim and be able to just
Sure.
use it. Because it does work right now, actually, if you use the node shim for Cloudflare workers. So.
Okay, nice. An idea for the hackathon, a website where you drop a GitHub URL and you can go back in time and see commit changes and maybe even spin up the commit at any time with StackBlitz. Oh. My favorite thing to do on new repos is to see their first commits. Oh, that's cool. Yeah. Looks like Resso is using Cloudflare workers already. Works well on local but not deployed. Are any of the TypeScript upgrades aimed at improving the speed of the TypeScript language server performance?
Yeah, actually, all of them are aimed at that. We recently started benchmarking the type inference performance. As if you've used the query builder, we infer all of the types, and it would be very hard to provide all of the types. So that means using it can be pretty heavy on LSP performance. But yeah, all of my efforts on both improving ergonomics of like EOP are also aimed at improving the performance there. EOP is actually our worst performing type. It turns out that it's an enormous overload. It's like 400 overloads on a single function. And if you happen to pick an operator that's close to the bottom of the list, it's like linear to the position in that overload list. Stuff like that are things that I'm addressing. And if you've used any of the recent canaries, there have been some big improvements. But I haven't been publishing much lately. I want to make some broader changes and do a little bit more testing, but I just haven't had the bandwidth to do that while working on the auth stuff for 5.0. So, but yeah, all of the type performance is kind of the number one priority for the query builder, aside from ergonomics. But yeah, that's the most important thing to me right now.
Nice. How would someone use one of those canary builds if they wanted to? What do they have to do?
Yeah, it's actually a little bit tricky, but if you specify, I don't think I have a tag for it, but if you go on our NPM page and look at the versions, there's a canary built. They're not nightly, they're just for every push to master. And you just find one of the recent canaries. But you do have to specify both the generator and the driver at canary because they kind of depend. We haven't updated the dependencies to point at other canaries yet. So that's the only little tripping point there. If you want to try a canary of the query builder, then you'll need to depend on both a canary of the query builder and a canary of the driver.
Okay. Shouldn't this be closed to support Cloudflare workers? This is an issue on EdgeDB.js. Are we maybe keeping that open while you finish up the testing you mentioned?
That's right. Yeah. I think it's still a PR, but there's a PR I have open to fix some of the last things for not needing the node shim. I can't remember. Maybe did I close already? Is it in the canary? Might be. Oh no, it's still open. And once I get that in a stable release and tested, I'll close that issue.
Nice. We've got a request to explain something here. Do you know what this is in reference to, Scott?
I haven't seen it before, but it looks like it's just a type guard for an error.
All right. I'm not clicking through on anything on my computer because I'm actually capturing the screen. So, yeah, Carson has offered to come up. I'll invite you to the stage.
Hey guys.
Hello, welcome.
Hello.
So I just shared the snippet with, I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your name, but essentially the exclusivity constraint doesn't have a unique error type in TypeScript or Node. So this was a generic check to check that the constraint violation error is an exclusivity constraint. So I could, see a future where there is unique error for that, but I don't know. I don't want to speak for you guys.
Yeah, we generate our errors from the server code. So if we did want to have a unique error for this, we might want to ping the people on the compiler team and see if they'll want a special case the exclusivity constraint.
Yeah, I know there's also inheritance handling as well, so it seems like that should be possible.
Yeah. If anyone, I guess Carson, you obviously have a use for that. But yeah, I'll ping the team and see what the general feeling is on that, and if people are if they're receptive to that, then we can create an issue, get that sorted.
Part of what I'm doing too is that error message also includes the property and the object type that was failing. So I actually extract those as well and put those on the error class and I did that in an abstract layer so that my application can actually use those values programmatically without having to parse the error string.
Oh, I see that, the cast function just below that.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Thank you, obviously, for all the work. A lot of the canaries are actually you're doing. Thank you, Carson, for especially in getting the generator stuff more composable and easier to write your own generators with. That's a huge thing that if I had time to focus on that, would be something high up on my list. 'Cause I want there to be a lot of ecosystem generators, so many use cases for introspecting the schema and generating some code that I appreciate all the work that you've done pushing that forward.
You're welcome. Thanks for working with me on it.
Yeah.
I'd love to upstream anything I can. We're not even live with our EdgeDB migration yet, so we're all still kind of coming together on our side as well.
Right on.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that, Carson. If you wanted to start that issue about special casing the exclusivity constraint, it would probably be a lot more powerful even coming from you than from us, and we can champion it on our side too.
Sure, I can write something up.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you very much. Here's a question for you, Scott. Did you test performance of the EdgeDB JS node driver within multiple workers using node cluster?
I have not, but I can revisit that topic some point soon. Yeah, I vaguely remember us talking about this a couple of weeks ago, but not revisited.
Yeah.
I do know that there was the issue around the Rust driver had to do with some handling of a legacy bit of the protocol that added some overhead to transactions, something like that. I wasn't involved in the actual discussion there, but I remember seeing it in the Slack history. So hopefully we've fixed that in the node driver, and yeah, I can do some benchmarking there on the JS driver.
Cool. Could you give a quick recap of what's coming in 5.0 and also what is coming afterwards, aside from auth stuff? It's branches, it's the new auth providers, and then a bunch of bug fixes and possibly some other stuff, but we're not 100% sure yet. I think is that how you would characterize it?
Yeah, I would characterize it. We're exploring some particular possible functionality, and if we can get it in the next week, then it'll land in 5.0. But don't want to let that cat out of the bag yet.
Yeah.
But I think we went into this version with the explicit feeling that it should be a performance and bug squashing exercise, and the fact that some features have landed in there are also good.
Yes.
Obviously, branches is a big thing.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think that would pretty much cover it. And if you look at the changelog, the V5 changelog, you can see a list of all the various bug fixes that have landed that'll be shipping in the stable release. Too many to name.
We could talk a little bit about upcoming stuff, although I don't know how much of the direction of 6.0 has even been started being discussed.
Sure.
Privy to that, but I do know about auth, even though it says aside from auth. Email internationalization is like one of the biggest requests, and in 5.0 we put proper email templates in place, but they're not customizable at all. So one of the big things that we're going to work on for 6.0, and that we were trying to get in for 5.0, but just couldn't make it in time. I couldn't design something in time. Is being able to internationalize emails. We have a couple of ideas on how to do that, both by letting you write some templates, but also with a webhook flow, which would just give you all of the control of like what happens when somebody signs up. It could send emails and kind of like give the ultimate inversion of control there. So we'll be exploring that in 6.0. Another thing that I think I want to prioritize for 6.0 is generic OpenID Connect providers. We've been adding OAuth providers kind of. They're actually pretty easy to add a new provider, but we've been kind of slow to add them. And I think just giving, if a provider uses OpenID Connect, it would be nice if you could just configure it yourself and not have to wait for us to do it. Or if you have a custom OpenID Connect setup that you're using. So that's another thing that I want to consider for this 6.0.
Yeah, a lot of what's coming in the next version gets decided after release time, just because it's gets a little bit hairy around release time. Okay, this is a question about how to build a local copy of the query builder generator from source, I think. Am I reading that right?
Yeah, the queries generator.
Oh, okay, the queries generator.
Yeah, thanks for taking on that work. I do want to do some revamp work on that too, but it may or may not end up bubbling to the top of my priority. So I'm glad that you went ahead and started on that. Getting it working, getting like the Yarn setup working, and then linked, and then in your own project is actually a little bit tricky. I don't know how easy it is to Yarn link in our repo and then npm link to that Yarn linked thing. I don't know that works. So you might have to just do a symlink yourself. Which shouldn't be too hard, but I can work up some instructions there on making that a little bit easier. If you don't use Yarn, if you're using Yarn, it's easy. npm link in the repo directory, and then npm link the name of the package in your own project. But I know if you're crossing the project boundaries, I think they don't quite work together.
Is anyone inside EdgeDB building a startup or a big side project on weekends with EdgeDB? Quinn offers up the .NET Query Builder. I'm not aware of any others. If they are, maybe they're still in stealth mode. What do you have any?
No, but I really want to be building something.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the questions that I end up fielding are questions that only come once you've been building out a non-trivial application. And I really want to build more with EdgeDB just to get the right perspective on API design and be able to be more helpful. But I haven't actually set aside time to do that yet.
Sure. Yeah, there's a lot.
My side project is learning to play guitar again.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I was going to say there's a lot of building children and families on weekends and after hours too. So those are big side projects not related to EdgeDB. Why is EdgeDB.js even using Yarn? I thought it died. Why not PNPM?
Well, EdgeDB.js started a while ago, and replacing a tool like Yarn with something that also works is just not high up on the priority list.
Yeah.
I would consider it. There's actually some weird module resolution bugs that are happening right now in the PNPM and TypeScript world that make me hesitate even wanting to start that until TypeScript figures that out. But there's some weird module resolution issues in TypeScript 5 right now that around symbolically linked directories that I think make moving to PNPM a little bit more of a maybe not right now thing. But also, Yarn is working right now, so we're just not going to spend much time creating something that is working just fine for us.
Yeah, yeah, makes sense. Carson has come through the issue. Thank you. Appreciate that. We will make sure that gets surfaced. All right. If you have any more questions, we got a few minutes left that we can take, maybe a couple more, depending on how involved they are. Corbin says, I use NPM with Turbo Repo, and I had to explicitly point my app's tsconfig at the exact folder in node modules so it could find the auth types. Okay, here's a new question. Do you think it'd be possible to wrap EdgeDB server in Nix derivation?
Yes, I do, and I would love to do that. Yeah, even being able to provide it as a Nix module would be amazing too. But yeah, and we have some NixOS users, and I'm a macOS user who uses Nix for Home Manager and a bunch of other things. So there's a lot of upsides to doing that, but I think from the design of EdgeDB server, it's meant to be as self-contained and as easy to deploy to Linux-like things as possible. So yeah, I think it would take somebody who was very good at Nix, which I am not, to spend some time learning the quirks of how EdgeDB server installs itself and exposes itself, and then work with us to figure out how to make that easier to work with in Nix world. Because I think that there's motivation to not to like bend over backwards to make Nix easier, or to make EdgeDB server easier to run with Nix, but to just clear out the friction if somebody wants to take that on. So I don't think it's impossible. I don't think it's on anyone's radar as like a priority right now, but it would be great. I think Elvis would be the person to talk to you about how the current kind of like build and run and all that stuff, all that machinery works, and he's not a Nix user, so it would be some coordination there.
Yeah, enlighten me a little bit, Scott. I'm not super familiar with Nix. What would this that we're talking about do for you? Is it that it's a lot of trouble now to use EdgeDB server under Nix, and this would make it easier? Is that?
It's that EdgeDB server just does all the things that Nix would do. Mm-hmm. It knows how to install itself and run itself with systemd, and like it is very opinionated about how it runs and how projects work and all that stuff, and it reaches outside of itself to kind of put binaries in all these places and store its data and stuff like that. And Nix is a little bit hermetic. It's a little bit more hermetic. It would involve like rewriting some of those paths and making EdgeDB server a little bit more dynamic in ways to make it work with Nix better.
Okay. Makes sense.
I think it's doable. Doable.
Yeah. Okay. We've got some discussion going on here about a recent example project that Alexandra built. Any appetite, Alexandra, for introducing this project and talking a little bit about it on the stage? You're welcome to if you'd like.
Yes, sure. So, okay, so to summarize this project, Versal, specifically like Versal AI SDK, recently they also posted a guide on generative UI, and works this way that it kind of abstracts most of the interactions with LLM, and you can provide a set of functions that LLM can run for you, because like from the GPT 3.5, from what I remember, it's possible for the model to run functions. So basically, when you are using this AI SDK, you can declare tools. They call it tools, and those tools can handle like any logic, and you can also specify what UI should be rendered. So in this example that I've built, it's like a booking assistant. So it looks like a chat, right? So I type a message, let's say, show me available houses. And then that message goes to the LLM. LLM processes it. It has like the basic context. It has the list of tools that it can use, and it may see that, oh, there is a function called get houses, and it can deduce that that's the function that we should run. And in this get houses function, what I'm doing is I'm fetching data from the database of EdgeDB, and then I'm also specifying the UI that should be rendered with the data that I just fetched. And there are also a few other functions, like you can have some details of a particular house. You can do booking through just chatting with the LLM. So yeah, so that's the summary of how it works. I think if you open the repo, there is a link to a demo. It's hosted on Vercel, and if I didn't run out of OpenAI credits, you should be able to play with it, but I did set a limit. So I'm not sure how many people use that already, but if there were like a lot of people using it, then, well, I'm sorry. You can also self-host it, or you can, run it locally and provide your Open API. OpenAI key.
Nice. Yeah, that's very cool. And you have so this is the one, your blog post on that is live, right? So if people want to read more in depth about it.
Yeah. Let's post a link to this blog post. Okay, I got it. Can you make a repo using actual vectors in EdgeDB? Yes, I already made a note based on your previous message.
Nice.
So I will add it to my to-do list.
Content forthcoming. All right. Thank you. That's very cool. We can probably take one, maybe two more questions. We'll wrap up here at 12 o'clock my time. Are there plans to augment the docs with more examples, especially for queries, so that LLMs are better at helping with them? Even the on-site Ask AI often hallucinates. Yes, there are plans to augment the docs with more examples. We also have plans to expose good questions and answers that happen here on Discord to the LLM, so that it can answer based on those interactions as well. And I think we've been saying that for a while now, but it is actually going to land at some point, and it will be nice to have. And you'll also have they'll be exposed to. So you'll also have a list of Q&As on various topics, divided by topic, that you can browse through, that could be helpful, and might also have helpful examples. Looks like we don't have anything left right now. We are coming up on time, so I think this is just about as good a place as any to call it. Thank you, Corbin. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. Thanks to everybody who came on the stage. Thanks to Alexandra, to Scott, And let us know what you thought about this day of the week and time. Is this better, worse? How does it work out for you? I guess if it's worse, you're probably not hearing this, but we'll try to figure out how this works compared to what we've done in the past. All right. Thanks again, everyone, and we will talk to you on another Office Hours soon.